Hey guys, it's Mr. Zovath, and we are going to be getting started on the second half of the new instructional packet. So today we're working through grade 4 math, starting on page 19, working through page 23. Let's go ahead and get started. Starting on page 19, we are working on division and word problems. So our instructions are to use a strategy of your choice to solve each problem. Let's go ahead and get started on question 1. There are 5 times as many tulips as rose bushes in a garden. There are 15 tulips. How many rose bushes are in the garden? So, just like with last week, we need to identify the important information and extract that from the problem to set up an equation to find out the answer that we're being asked. So, we know that there's 5 times as many tulips as rose bushes. And we also know that there's 15 tulips total. So the question is asking us how many rose bushes are in the garden. So let's go ahead and set up this information as an equation that we can solve. So we know that there's 15 tulips, and we know that there's 5 times as many tulips as rose bushes. So 5 times a number equals 15. So there's a couple ways that we can solve this problem. We can divide 15 by 5, so split it up into 5 equal parts, or we could skip count by 5 until we hit 15. So 5, 10, 15. How many times did we have to skip count? 1, 2, 3. So it looks like 5 times 3 is equal to 15, which means we have 3 rose bushes in the garden, because there are 5 times as many tulips as rose bushes. There are 15 tulips, so our 3 rose bushes times 5 equals 15. So as you're working through page 19, look for opportunities to identify the important information in each problem, pull that out, and set up your equation in order to find the answer that the question is asking. On page 20, we are dividing with arrays and area models. According to our instructions, the answers to problems 1 through 12 are mixed up at the bottom of the page. Cross out the answers as you complete the problems. So starting with number 1. We're being asked 606 divided by 2. We can definitely do that with an area model, so let's go ahead and set it up. We know we're dividing 606 by 2, so within an area model, each of our place values needs to be represented. It looks like there's 6 hundreds. There are 0 tens, and we have 6 ones. So now we can work by place value to see how many times 2 goes into each of these numbers. So taking a look at this first place, we know 2 goes into 6 3 times, because we have 2, 4, 6. We skip counted 1, 2, 3 times. But we can't forget about these extra zeros hanging out. So since we found 2 going into 6 3 times, we can just bring these guys up behind that 3, which means 2 goes into 600 300 times. And now working in the tens place, we have a 0 here, so we know that 2 goes into 0 times. And then finally in the ones place, we just worked it out. 2 goes into 6 3 times. Again, we can skip count 2, 4, 6, skip counting 1, 2, 3 times to find our answer of 2 going to 6 3 times. Now that we've worked out each place value, all that's left to do is add up the answers we got. So we have 300 plus 0 plus 3 to give us 300 303, which means our answer for 606 divided by 2 equals 303. Now we're being asked to go to the bottom of the page and find 303 right here. So it's one of our answer choices. Let's go ahead and write it in and then cross it out. And then we can move on to the next question. Once we work through all of the problems, you'll be asked what strategies you used to solve the problems. And then you'll be asked to explain how to use multiplication to check your answer to problem 10. So let's go ahead and work through that with our answer from problem 1. So we have 303 as an answer. Now, we can check our work for division by multiplying. So let's go ahead and work this in reverse. We'll go back the other direction. 303 times 2 equals 3 times 2 equals 6. 0 times 2 equals 0. 3 times 2 equals 6. So we were able to check our answer. We found 606 after working in the opposite direction with multiplication. So on pages 21 and 22, we're dividing with estimation and area models. Our instructions say, check the student's answers by multiplying the quotient by the divisor and adding the remainder. If an answer is incorrect, cross out the answer and write the correct quotient, including the remainder. So it looks like we're provided an example in the scenario that the student answer was incorrect. So our question was 637 divided by 4. The student answered 149 with a remainder of 1. So after checking that with multiplication and adding the remainder, it looks like the correct answer should have been 597. So that does not equal our 637 here. So we had to divide it, and we found the quotient of 159 with a remainder of 1. So let's go ahead and work on a second problem here from the beginning so you guys can have a good example of what that would look like as we start fresh. So we can check the student answers by dividing the quotient by the divisor and then adding the remainder of 1. So it's 69, which is our quotient, times our divisor, which is 2. So we have 9 times 2, which is 18, and then 6 times 2, which is 12, plus 1, which is 13. But we're not done. We have 138 when we multiply our divisor and our quotient, and we need to add our remainder of 1, which equals 139. That's the same thing here. So it looks like the student's answer is correct. So we don't have to cross it out in this example. But let's go ahead and work through it with our area model in case we did have to cross it out and find the exact quotient. So you guys have an example of what that would look like working through it with an area model. So we know we're dividing 139 into 2 parts. So with an area model, again, each place value needs to be represented. So we have 100, we have 3 tens, and then we have 9 ones that are being divided by 2. So 2 goes into 10 5 times. But we have this extra 0 here that we can't forget, so we can just bring that guy up. So 2 goes into 100 50 times. 2 goes into 30. We can look at that like, what is half of 30? If we divide 30 into 2 equal parts, it's 15. So 2 goes into 30 15 times. And then 2 goes into 9. Well, we can take a look at this by going skip counting. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So it looks like that doesn't work out, but it at least goes into it 4 times. So that means we will be left with a remainder, because 2 times 4 is equal to 8. So we have 9 minus 8, which is equal to 1. So now we just have to add the numbers that we found here by dividing each place value. 50 plus 15 equals 65, plus 4 equals 69, but we have our remainder here of 1. 69 with a remainder of 1. So as you work through these problems, you're going to be going through that process, finding the exact quotient if you have to. If the student answer is correct, your multiplication will be fine to support your answer. So when you complete these problems, you'll be asked to write a word problem that could be solved by one of the problems, and then you'll be asked to answer number 2, which is, can an answer be incorrect even if it looks reasonable? And explain. So your answers are going to vary for these questions, but do your best to go ahead and explain. On page 23, we are dividing 4-digit numbers. Our instructions are: estimate. Circle all the problems with quotients between 500 and 1,500. Then find the exact quotients of only the problems you circled. So to estimate, we're going to be rounding numbers again. So whether that be to the nearest 1,000 or the nearest 100, whatever you need to round to make it easier to estimate a quotient. And then if your answer falls between 500 and 1,500, you'll circle that question and solve for the exact quotient. So let's go ahead and start with number 1. 2,508 divided by 4. So for this, we're going to round 2,508 to the nearest 100, which would be 2,500. You can see here, we're rounded to the nearest hundreds, so we'll go to our tens place to find out how we're going to round the hundreds. It's less than 4, so we're going to let this 5 rest. So 4 or less, let it rest. We're not going to change it, we're not going to raise it. And then every number after the 5 is going to be around 0. And then we're dividing it by 4. So let's go ahead and work by place value. So 4 divided by 2, or 2 divided by 4, we're going to put a filler 0 because we can't do that here. But working over, 25 divided by 4. 4 goes into 25 at least 6 times, because 6 times 4 equals 24. So we can subtract these here. So 25 minus 24 equals 1. We can drop this down, the 0, to give us 10. And then we have 4 going into 10 how many times? Well, at least 2, right? Because 2 times 4 equals 8. We'll put that down here below our division. So 10 minus 8 equals 2. And then we're going to drop this last 0 down next to our 2. And 4 goes into 20 how many times? So skip counting by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. 4 goes into 20 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Because 5 times 4 equals 20. So we're done with our estimate. Now, does it fall between 500 and 1,500? 625. Yes, it does. So finding our exact quotient, since 625 falls between 500 and 1,500, means we can go through the same process here. So 2,508 divided by 4. So the early parts of the division doesn't change. We know 4 goes into 25 6 times because 6 times 4 equals 24. And then 25 minus 24 is equal to 1. So we can bring this 0 down. 4 goes into 10 2 times. We solve that up here because 2 times 4 is equal to 8. So 10 minus 8 is equal to 2. Bring this down. Or 8 down. So this part's a little bit different. So we have 28. How many times does 4 go into 28? Well, we know 4 goes into 25 6 times because 4 times 6 is 24. So starting from 24, we can skip count one more time for 28. So this is 6, 7. So 4 goes into 28 7 times because 7 times 4 is equal to 28. That means we're done with no remainder. So 2,508 divided by 4 is an even 627 with no remainder. So as you work through this page, you'll be estimating by rounding to the nearest 100 or the nearest 1,000, whatever you need to be able to estimate the quotient. If it falls between 500 and 1,500, you'll be finding for the exact quotient, whether you're using this algorithm, an area model, or an array. After you finish questions 1 through 12, you'll have the opportunity to explain what strategies you use to estimate the quotients, and then you'll be able to check one of your answers by solving it with a different strategy and show your work. And that's going to be it for this week's packet, guys. If you have any questions about the work in this week's packet, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are always available by phone, text, or on Teams. So again, if you need any help, we are here to help you out, and we'll look forward to seeing how well you do on this week's work. Have a good one.